I think my husband is a skinwalker, and here's the horrifying reason why. For clarification, my husband and I have been married for a while. We are high school sweethearts and know each other left, right and centre, whether it comes to our latte orders, when we're having a bad day, or down to our literal thoughts. My husband Henry is a very quiet and charismatic man. He practically lives by the motto, if you have nothing intelligent to say, then say nothing at all. His father used to continuously tell him that while growing up, and he learned to just be quiet and listen and observe. Even with me, he's very quiet. I didn't mind it, to be frank. I myself was the nerdy type of girl in school, straight A's and shy, never talking to anyone. Until I met Henry. He understood me when I didn't even need to use words. Our love language is acts of service without even having to ask. Usually our day goes like this. He goes to work. While he's at work, I clean the house, buy the groceries and walk our dog, B, a mini labradoodle, to the park near our block. Then I come home and start on supper. He usually comes home around 4ish. He greets me in the kitchen silently with a kiss. I hug him and continue, and then we eat in the quiet. It's pretty nice actually. That's what frightened me the other night. When I finished walking the dog and started on our supper, Henry walked in the house, louder than usual. His footsteps seemed rushed and heavier as well. He's about 6 foot and is more lean. He typically walks more softly, like he's trying to be silent, but today he seemingly came stomping into the house with heavy footsteps. I poked my head around the corner of the kitchen and he was walking up the stairs, almost like he was in pain, yet he wasn't wincing. "Hello, how was your day?" he said, smiling a huge grin, not how he normally would. I gave him a bit of a frown because he was acting strange, like he was learning how to speak to me, like he was having trouble acting normal. "Hello," I said back, turning to the kitchen, thinking he was acting strange, but who knows. He walked up about 4 big steps away from me and stood there, still in his suit and tie, briefcase in hand, smiling that eerie smile. That wasn't my Henry smile. I was trying to focus on the dinner I was plating, trying not to look at him, showing him physical signs that I was uncomfortable, which he usually would have picked up on, but for some reason he wasn't this time. "Go wash up. You can't be wearing your work clothes at dinner," I said quietly. "Yes," he said. He smiled wider somehow, like his face was stretching in inhumane ways. That is not my husband. Henry and I may not speak much, but we did set boundaries when we were on a few dates. He told me he was uncomfortable with pet names, that they just sounded dumb. He told me I could call him whatever, but not to call him dear. His mother, who was now deceased, used to be absolutely terrible to him when he was younger, which I'm not going to get into too much detail, but if you're thinking about it, it most likely happened. He told me about how it hurt so much, salt in the wound, opening it back up when he heard that phrase, back in that big brown house where everybody was drunk and yelling. I had called him dear to see if he would have a slight reaction, and he didn't move a muscle. That's not my husband, it definitely isn't Henry. I started to sweat, wondering what it could mean. I was going to test it once more while we were eating to see if it really was. I didn't know what I was going to do, because if I were to call the cops, what was I to say? Someone who looks just like my husband is trying to impersonate him? No, that just sounds silly. I set the table up, shaking a little bit, knowing something was terribly wrong. He wasn't making any noise. "Dear, are you coming? Dinner is ready," I said, trying my best to calm myself down. "Yes, I'm coming," he replied instantly, walking into the room as if he was just lurking in the shadows. We both sat down and started picking away at our plates, when I smiled. "Henry, I was thinking we could go visit your mother. It's been a while." "That sounds wonderful. Anytime soon?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "She died last spring." "Yeah, I was thinking next week," I smiled, trying to keep my act together. "Amazing, thank you," he said, copying the warm smile my husband once used to give to me, but this one didn't reach his eyes. After I cleaned up supper and Henry was told to get into the shower, I started digging through his side drawer. I found a leather notebook and quickly opened it and started reading. It was almost like a diary. The latest entry read, "I don't know if I'll make it back home after this time. Going to this forest is too risky. I need to get everything sorted out on my parents' land before they get to us, before it mimics me, or worse, hurts the people that I love." As soon as my mind snapped back to reality, the shower stopped and I heard whatever was mimicking my husband thrash around in the bathroom. I quickly locked the door to our bedroom and have been here for about half an hour now. It's been begging me and trying different voices, crying, sobbing, begging and screaming. I don't know how much longer I can last. Please someone, if you're reading this, come and save me before it's too late. Have you ever heard of a skinwalker? I've avoided telling this story before because I wanted to believe that it wasn't real, that it was just a dream, but I've read so many similar encounters that I feel like maybe I should tell someone. Maybe it was real and something like this really lives out there. I wish I'd known it was possible back then. The story starts at my aunt's house. At the time, my mum and dad were going through a divorce. I was about 11 and my youngest sister was only 6. The details of the divorce don't really matter, but we were staying at my aunt's house with my mum until she could find a place she could afford on her own. My sister and I were too young to fully understand, so it was almost like a vacation. It did help that my aunt had a really cool house. It was big and seemed even bigger to a couple of kids. I don't really know house lingo, but it was very modern, with 2 long main wings. One side of the house was the bedrooms and a small library. The other had a kitchen. The kitchen had these huge windows, the kind lots of more modern styled houses have, where they take up the whole wall. Nestled in this wall of windows was a sliding glass door, but my sister and I rarely used it because it was large and really heavy and difficult for us to open. Another thing about these windows though was that they faced the woods. My aunt's house was surrounded, right on the edge of a large wooded area. The trees ended only a couple feet away from where the sliding glass door was. Of course, this was one of the benefits of her house. Living near the woods was peaceful, or at least that's what my aunt always said. My aunt had a small sitting area by the windows where she could watch nature. She told us that often she'd heard little herds of deers walking through and that she'd even seen a mountain lion once. Anyway, you get the idea. It was a big house with big windows and it sat close to the woods. For the majority of the time that we lived there, we had no issues. My sister and I would even go play in the woods, always staying in sight of the house. My mother would often sit in the sitting area by the windows and keep an eye on us. We'd play hide and seek, or tag, or see if we could climb the trees. Things changed at night though. I hated those windows at night. When I'd walk down the long hallway to the south wing of the house to get a glass of water from the kitchen, I'd always see the trees moving, swaying unnaturally. Not like from wind, where it started from the top and worked its way down, but like something was pushing against them from below and the tree shook from that. It freaked me out, but I was 11, so it wasn't that hard. I'd usually just hurry up and get my water and run back to my room. I hated it so much that I rarely forgot to get water before bed after the first couple of times. I wasn't risking that creepy shit again. Later on, I wasn't given a choice though. One night, I had a dream that my mother was calling me. Her voice was coming from the kitchen, asking for my help with something. I stood up from bed and made my way towards where she called, my brain fuzzy from sleep. Her voice was soft, it carried to me as I walked warm and familiar. The closer I got though, the weirder it sounded, becoming slightly distorted and deeper. It was like a mix of my mum's voice with some animalistic cries that just got louder until I was shocked awake. Just before I stepped through the doorway into the kitchen, I quickly looked around, confused. My mum wasn't there. Plus the whole house was dark, except for the moonlight that illuminated just enough of the room for me to know it was empty. I shrugged it off as a sleepwalking dream, though I'd never had one before, so I turned around and walked back to my room. A few nights passed before it happened again. This time, it was my father who called to me. "Please," he called, "I need to talk to you, come here." Just like last time, I stood up from my bed, like in a trance, aware and unaware of what I was doing. Each step brought me closer to the kitchen, where I could hear my father, his voice becoming more gravelly and broken as I walked. I stepped into the kitchen and I thought I saw him there, standing by the kitchen island, illuminated in the moonlight. Then he turned around and looked at me, and I woke up, realising that there was nothing there after all. It took a few nights again, but on the third night I heard my little sister. She was crying for me, telling me that she hurt herself and she needed my help. I stood up and started hurrying to the kitchen. This time, I barely noticed when her voice started changing. It became a distorted gasp as I drew closer. I stepped into the kitchen and saw her. She was knelt crying on the ground near the windows. I started to walk over to her, but stopped when I realised something. She was kneeling behind the glass, meaning she was outside. Her cries became a laugh and I startled awake, but I still saw shape kneeled just outside the window, only now it was bigger and dark and misshaped. I screamed in terror and it moved, faster than anything I'd seen before, disappearing into the woods. My mum came running from her room, turning on the lights and comforting me. I told her about the sleepwalking in passing, so she chalked it up to me, still having been asleep when I told her about the monster. She walked me back to my room and had me take some sleeping medicine to help me get back to sleep. After that, everything seemed like it might be okay. A week passed, and then 2. My mum found a nice apartment that she planned to move us into. My sister and I were sad to leave, but I was secretly relieved. I'd been on edge ever since it happened that night, wondering if it would call to me again, but everything was silent until the night before we were meant to leave. I was just starting to drift off to sleep when I heard shuffling outside my door. I froze, certain that the monster had returned for me, that it had somehow gotten in the house and was about to open my door. But the sound simply moved past me and down the hallway towards the kitchen. I stayed where I was, waiting to make sure it wasn't a trick, then got up as quietly as I could and crept over to the door. I hovered, unsure if I should open it. After a few seconds, I made up my mind to run to my mum's room and wake her up. I slowly cracked open the door and peeked into the hallway towards where the sounds were coming from. There, at the end of the hallway and shuffling into the kitchen, was the form of my little sister. I blinked, and then squeezed my eyes shut and opened them again, making sure I wasn't asleep. But no, she was real, and she was disappearing into the kitchen right before my eyes. As I realised this, I realised I could hear something. A kind of faraway moaning whine coming from the direction that she was going. Dread ran up my body and I looked down the hallway at my mum's door, the opposite direction that my sister was walking. Faye told me to run and get to her first, but instinct moved my feet towards the kitchen where my sister had gone out of my sight. I ran as silently as I could down the hall and peered around the doorway to look for her. There she was. She was standing right in front of the windows, her eyes open but glazed. As I watched, I realised the trees were swaying, the same way they used to but much faster now. And the swaying seemed to be getting closer, moving towards us at an alarming speed. I could hear branches breaking and the trees creak in protest as something hit them, and the moaning whine I had heard from far away was getting louder, sounding like a dying animal. One tree was rocked so violently a flock of birds flew screaming out of it into the night air. As this was happening, my sister was reaching for something, the lock on the sliding door. Even at 11, I knew something was coming through the woods towards us, and it was running, sprinting right at my sister. I ignored my brain screaming at me to run the other way and raced towards my sister. The noise was so loud now, it had become a screeching, unbearable sound to listen to. It sounded like it was all around me. I grabbed my sister around the waist, pulled her back just before her fingers touched the lock, and I pulled both of us behind the wall beside the windows, just out of sight. The sound stopped. The trees no longer swayed, and the screeching had fallen silent. I could hear my sister breathing frantically, but I held her mouth closed, willing her not to cry. My own breathing was shallow and fast, but as I tried to quiet it, I realised there was another sound. My sister's breathing, my breathing, and the even breathing of someone else, something else, standing just outside the window next to us. A too large, humanoid shadow blocked the moonlight that usually fell into the kitchen, and I watched the figure reach out its unnaturally long arm. I held my breath as I heard a scratch against the sliding door and saw the shadow of the creature's arm touch where the handle of the door was. After a second, the creature withdrew its arm and let it fall to its side. Then it stood there, still for what felt like hours. Finally the shadow shrunk and I could hear whatever it was leave. The underbrush rustled and the trees swayed, but the sound moved away this time instead of towards us. Still, I didn't move. I waited until all traces of its presence was gone before I slowly pulled my sister away towards the hall, keeping out of sight of the windows as much as I possibly could. My sister was crying as I led her down the hall, and I think I was squeezing her hand too tight, but I felt overwhelming relief as I opened the door to my mother's room and crawled into her bed. My mother never believed us, of course, and we moved away the next day. I refused to return to my aunt's house ever since, and she eventually moved away. I've never had an encounter like that again, but that might be because I stay away from the woods like a plague now. If you're a fan of hiking or camping or living near nature, all I can say to you is good luck. Don't tell skinwalker stories around the campfire. I was camping in Arizona with my cousin. We built a fire, then got some marshmallows out to make some s'mores. It was a warm night, but we were having a good time. I hadn't gone camping with my cousin in years, since we were teenagers. I blew the flame out of my marshmallow and crushed it between two graham crackers and chocolate. "Do you want to hear a scary story?" my cousin asked with a sly grin on his face. When we were younger, he used to always tell scary stories around the fire. I couldn't help but get excited. "Let's see if you still got it," I said, with my own grin. "Have you ever heard of a skinwalker?" he asked, popping a marshmallow in his mouth. "Yeah. Isn't it a native legend? Something about turning into a coyote?" "Yes. A skinwalker is a Navajo witch that wears the skin of animals and can turn into any animal they want." He leans in closer so the fire illuminates his face. "What's so scary about that?" I asked. "You don't want to run into one of them." "Trust me, I have," he said. I say nothing, waiting for him to continue on with his story. I was visiting my friend one day, the summer after graduation. We were hanging out on the porch, talking about what we were going to do now that school was over. Just wasting the night away, really. Then I noticed a coyote just wandering around a few yards away. Now in this neighbourhood, there weren't any fences dividing the yards, so I could see it walk from yard to yard. I nudged my friend and nodded over to it. We got quiet and just watched it. Then it stood up on 2 feet. It was pressed up against the house in the shadows and just scooted along on 2 feet like a human. I was so shocked. I didn't think that coyotes could do that. My friend whispered to me, "That's no coyote." I asked him what he meant. That's a skinwalker." Now he had mentioned skinwalkers to me before, but I thought it was just a legend, and that he surely didn't believe some old story his parents told him to scare him from playing in the woods at night. Once it was next to a garbage can, it hopped on top of it, then leaped up, grabbing onto the window ledge. The window was open. Faith filled my body as I realised 2 things. No coyote could do that, and whoever was in that room was about to have a very bad night. Then we heard the guy in that room screaming. Then his screams were drowned out by a scream that was somewhat of a mix of animal and human. We fell out of our chairs, scrambling to get inside. We locked all the doors and windows and hid. That was the scariest night of my life. I don't remember if cops showed up to that house. We were too scared to leave the room and check, but it's a night that I'll never forget. Goosebumps covered my arms. Now that was a good story. I didn't believe him about it being true, but it was a good story nonetheless. Looks like you still got it. That was good. Got me scared to look into the trees. I laughed nervously, looking behind me at the forest that seems just a little bit scarier now. Hey, every word of that is true. I didn't make this one up. No need to make up a scary story when you've lived it. He has a pleased look on his face nonetheless. We sat in silence for a bit, and I thought about the story he just told. For some reason, a coyote creeping around on two legs just seems comical. I laughed to myself. Maybe it would be creepier in person. After another 30 minutes, the fire dies down and we crawl into our tents. All thoughts of skinwalkers had left our heads. I was drifting off to sleep when a stick snapping outside our tent woke me up. My face was facing the wall of the tent, and I don't think I'd quite registered what woke me up. After a few seconds, I closed my eyes and prepared to go back to sleep. Then I heard my cousin outside the tent calling my name. I opened my eyes. I assumed my cousin had stepped outside for some reason, but I didn't know what he would need me for out there. I didn't quite want to leave my sleeping bag, so I was just going to pretend like I didn't hear him. I closed my eyes again. Then I heard him call me again. Annoyed, I sat up to leave the tent. That's when I noticed my cousin right next to me, asleep. I knew I heard him call me from outside the tent. I heard it twice. There was no mistake. I shook him awake. "What do you want?" he asked, not bothering to open his eyes. "I heard your voice outside the tent calling my name. Am I going crazy?" He opens his eyes, a panicked look. "You're absolutely sure? My voice?" he asks. "Yeah, twice, there was no mistaking it." He pulls me down to the ground next to him. We hear some shuffling outside the tent, and I start to freak out a little. "That's a skinwalker. They can imitate voices. That's how they draw you in," he whispers. "A skinwalker? Are you sure?" "What's the odds of a skinwalker showing up the same night you tell them the story?" "Don't mess with me," I whisper back. "Talking about a skinwalker at night can draw it to you. I didn't think about that when I told the story. Just stay quiet and stay down and hopefully it'll leave." The sound of another stick snapping didn't help at all. After a few long, frightful hours of laying there, eyes wide open, it seemed to go away. Eventually I fell asleep, I guess. I don't remember falling asleep, and I don't know how I could. My cousin was already packing everything up by the time I crawled out of the tent. "I know we planned for 2 more nights, but we're getting out of here right now." "Yeah, I'm with you on that," I said. Now, I can't say for sure it was a skinwalker that night, but I can say I definitely heard my cousin calling my name from outside the tent when he was sleeping right next to me. And that was by far the creepiest thing to ever happen to me. So take my advice and save the skinwalker stories for when you're safe in the comforts of your home and not for the campfire.